In a quiet corner of Tatvan, Turkey, a pregnant cat set out on a mission, led by nothing but instinct and desperation. She wandered into a hospital, her eyes full of hope, silently asking for help. And then something truly heartwarming unfolded. The sun had just climbed over the mountains, painting the peaceful town of Tatvan in soft golden light. It seemed like any regular day at the local family health center. Doctors moved through their routines, the air carrying the usual mix of disinfectant and quiet conversation. But today wouldn't stay ordinary for long. Just outside the center's doors, someone unexpected was waiting. A pregnant cat, with fur tangled and eyes filled with both fear and hope, had found her way to the entrance. She clearly needed help. Even with her belly heavy, she stood there meowing, soft but insistent, as if she knew this was her last chance. As nurses went about their morning, they stopped in surprise when they saw her. She was crouched near the door, eyes pleading. They were used to helping people, not animals. But it was hard to ignore the sight of a mother in distress, no matter the species. "What's a cat doing here?" one nurse murmured, hurrying toward the glass doors. The cat stepped inside, but quickly darted back out when she saw the woman coming. The nurse tried to shoo her away, raising her voice a little, not out of cruelty, but out of concern. The clinic was full of pregnant women, and she knew cats could carry diseases like toxoplasmosis. She wasn't heartless, just cautious, trying to protect the people under her care. Still, there was a hint of regret in her tone. But the cat wasn't ready to give up. She darted past the nurse and squeezed through the doors, heading straight for the waiting room. Her cries filled the room, soft, sharp, and full of urgency. Some people stood up and moved away, worried about scratches or illness. But most stayed where they were, watching her with quiet sympathy. It was clear they saw more than just a stray. They saw a mother asking for help in the only way she could. The nurse came back inside, grabbed a broom from behind a small door, and looked ready to chase the cat out for good. But before she could, her coworkers stepped in. Something had shifted. The cat's quiet desperation had reached them. The staff gathered around, no longer hesitant but concerned. One nurse pointed to the cat's belly and softly said, "She's pregnant." That was all it took. The decision came naturally. They had to help. Their whole job was built around care. How could they turn away a mother who came to them for help, just like the others they served every day? Still, they weren't sure what to do next. The nurses knew their skills were for treating people, not animals, and they still had to put the safety of their patients first. But they couldn't turn away from what they were seeing. That cat, sitting there and quietly asking for help, had touched something deep inside them. She wasn't human, but she was still a mother in need. So they gently guided her to a quiet corner, far from the busy foot traffic of the day, and laid down a few spare towels to make her comfortable. The next big concern was finding real medical help. One of the nurses quickly picked up the phone and called a local vet. "We have a pregnant cat here who needs help," she said. While they waited for the vet, the nurses stayed close by. Some crouched beside the cat, softly petting her and wondering out loud what her story might be. How she'd ended up like this, alone and in pain. What they didn't know was that she hadn't always been alone. This cat once lived in a beautiful mansion, full of warmth and laughter. She was part of a loving family, a couple with 3 kids who treated her like one of their own. Every day she was wrapped in affection, gentle hands stroking her fur, cheerful voices calling her name. That house wasn't just a place to live. It was her whole world, and in it she was more than a pet. She was family. But life doesn't always stay the same. One day the house fell quiet. Not a peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that feels wrong. The children didn't come running. The woman didn't call her name. She waited, ears perked, tail curled around her feet, hoping the silence would end. But it never did. What she didn't know was that the family had lost everything. Their home was up for sale. The woman and children had already left, and the man was finishing up what needed to be done before handing over the keys. For a short while, it was just the man and the cat. He was kind, but something had changed. The joy was gone. She stayed close to him, hoping it would be enough. But then, one morning, he too was gone. He had moved into a small apartment with the rest of the family. They hadn't taken her with them. And that was it. Soon, new people moved into the mansion. They didn't see her as part of the home, just a leftover from the past. Without a second thought, they threw her out. She went from soft beds and familiar voices to cold sidewalks and strangers' stares. Alone now, the cat wandered the same alley she used to watch from her window. Once a cherished queen of a happy home, now just another stray looking for kindness in a world that had turned its back on her. Her name was Chanel. From the moment Chanel was left behind, life on the streets had been anything but easy. Every day became a struggle to find food and a place to rest, all while staying out of harm's way. Still, she moved with quiet strength. Her green eyes, though tired, held a certain knowing, like she'd seen too much but hadn't given up. Then one night, during one of her many searches through alleyways and dark corners, fate stepped in. She crossed paths with a male stray. Their meeting was brief, but it changed everything. Soon, she could feel a new life growing inside her. As the days turned into weeks, her belly grew heavier. With the pregnancy came a new kind of urgency. Finding food wasn't just for her anymore. She was now fighting to feed the little ones she carried. Places that had once seemed like safe hiding spots now felt too open, too risky for a mother to be. But something stronger than fear pushed her forward. That's how she ended up in front of the health center. She was scared the humans inside might turn her away, or worse, but deep inside she held on to a fragile hope. Maybe they'd help her. Maybe someone would understand. She'd watched people go in and out of that building. Some limped, others clutched wounds or leaned on someone for support. But when they came back out, they seemed different, stronger, healed. And she'd seen women walk in with round bellies, then leave carrying tiny pink-faced babies. Something inside her told her this was where people went to be made whole again. And maybe, just maybe, they could do the same for her. As the nurses comforted her, a wave of quiet excitement moved through the clinic. Their call for help had worked. Safer Dormus, the veterinarian, had arrived. The moment he stepped inside, it was obvious who he was. He had the look of someone who'd spent his life helping animals, steady hands, kind eyes, and a presence that made even the most frightened creatures feel safe. People in Tatvan knew him well. For years, he'd been the one they called when no one else could help. Safer wasn't just a vet because of training. He'd grown up in a home where strays were welcome, where hurt animals were treated like guests. He didn't just know how to fix broken bodies. He understood the fear, the confusion, the quiet suffering animals couldn't say out loud. He knelt beside Chanel, and with just a glance he could tell she was in serious trouble. She was weak, clearly underfed, and her breathing was strained. Something told him she'd picked up infections out on the streets. Her body was hanging on by a thread. There wasn't much time. His voice was calm but firm. "She needs surgery, right away." A C-section was the only option, and it couldn't wait. The room shifted into motion. No one hesitated. Safer's words carried the kind of urgency that made people act fast. Even though the health center was set up to treat people, the staff quickly stepped up to help with the cat's emergency. Under Safer's guidance, they turned a quiet corner of the clinic into a temporary operating room, gathering whatever tools they could and making sure everything was as clean and safe as possible. Safer stayed calm through it all, and that helped steady the nerves of the nurses. They weren't used to working on animals, but they were ready to help however they could. As they prepped for the C-section, Safer walked them through the risks. The cat was fragile and surgery wouldn't be easy, but there was still a real chance to save her and her unborn kittens. His confidence wasn't just wishful thinking. It came from years of experience helping animals pull through when all odds were against them. And those instincts were right. Very few vets could handle something this intense with the same level of skill and calm. But the road ahead wasn't smooth. The first challenge was the equipment. Everything was made for humans. Safer, thinking fast, made adjustments, turning ordinary tools into what he needed. He was used to making do, and it showed. The staff followed his lead. Even though they were used to treating people, they learned quickly, pitching in wherever they were needed. Once the surgery started, it became clear just how weak the cat really was. Her malnourished body didn't respond well to the anesthesia. She was too fragile, and every minute mattered. Safer worked carefully, watching her breathing and heart rate, adjusting doses to keep her safe. He never took his eyes off her, every movement measured and precise. Then came another challenge. The kittens weren't positioned the way they should have been, making it dangerous to remove them. Any wrong move could hurt the kittens, or their mother. Tension filled the room. Everyone stood quietly as Safer began the C-section. His face was calm, but focused, as if every second counted. And it did. This wasn't just a medical procedure, it was a rescue mission, a fight to give this cat and her babies a shot at life. As Safer made the first cut, the room fell silent. The only sounds were the soft beep of the heart monitor and quiet words of encouragement from the staff. With steady hands, Safer worked through the surgery, gently navigating the cat's fragile body. She lay motionless, sedated, but hanging on, her small chest rising and falling with each careful breath. Finally, the moment came. Safer reached the womb. One by one, he brought the kittens into the world. Every tiny arrival was met with a held breath, then a soft exhale of relief. Hope filled the room with every heartbeat. But those first moments of life were hanging by a thread. The kittens were still and barely breathing, their tiny bodies limp. Safir and the team jumped into action, gently rubbing their chests and warming them, doing everything they could to get them to breathe. It was a mix of quick thinking, training, and pure determination. And then, it worked. One by one, the kittens let out soft cries. The room, which had been holding its breath, filled with quiet cheers and teary smiles. Their tiny voices were like music, cutting through the tension that had filled the air. What had started as a risky emergency ended in something truly beautiful. The cat, now a mother, began to stir. Weak but alive, her instincts kicked in as she tried to move closer to her babies. Around her, the staff finally relaxed, some wiping away tears. They'd all just witnessed something incredible. Thanks to Safir's steady hands and heart, not only had the cat survived, but all her kittens had too. It was a reminder, right there in that little corner of a human clinic, of just how strong and fragile life can be. But there was still more to do. The surgery was over, but recovery had its own risks. The mother cat needed to be watched closely to make sure she didn't get an infection. The kittens needed to be kept warm and monitored around the clock to be sure they were nursing and breathing well. The nurses, though they weren't trained for animal care, stepped up again. Under Safir's guidance, they worked in shifts, gently checking on the little family and doing everything they could to help them through their first critical hours. Then, 24 hours later, Safir gave the update everyone had been hoping for. The mama cat and all her babies were safe. They still needed care and medicine, but they were going to be okay. It was time to take them to a proper veterinary clinic. Safir gently packed them into a carrier and let each of the nurses come say goodbye. Some of them knelt down and whispered to the mama cat. Others reached in to gently stroke the kittens. Safir knew this wasn't the last time some of these nurses would see them. Caring doesn't stop just because the job does, and he was pretty sure a few of those kittens would end up adopted by the very people who'd helped save them. That brave mama cat hadn't just found medical help when she stepped into that clinic. She'd found kindness, second chances, and maybe even a future full of love for her and her little ones. And it all started because she didn't give up. What a story, right? Now we'd love to hear from you. How would you react if you saw a stray cat wander into a hospital waiting room? Would you help? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life animal stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.